What's happening, YouTube? Welcome to PBD Live. It is super hot out today. Hopefully, everybody else is having a better time than we are. Really crappy day in the dyno room, and it's only going to get worse. But that's the price to pay living in South Florida. Who do we got here today? Craig Built in the house. What's up? That's Tim Cochran. What's up? We just got done with his car. He brought it down for a tune. It went awesome. The car made phenomenal power. Super happy with how that worked out. Jaden Brantley, what's up? JQ Public, your reaction time is abysmal, 1 minute plus. No idea what you're talking about. Anyway, before we get started, I am going to say a shout out to the Wall of Fame, guys. We've got a lot more companies that are going to go up here, but I want to give them a shout out every couple live feeds. These are all companies, and one's a magazine that I support and have been a lot of help to me throughout my whole career, and they are up there because they're companies that I recommend and support. We got Whipple Superchargers, Keltrack Suspension, TKM Performance, TTR CNC, our new intake manifolds from them are kicking ass. We actually just tested one on an LS Cadillac. You can see that on our, I'm not sure where it is. Actually, I think I put a short up today and a reel. Forge Line Wheels, HP Tuners, Eric Brooks. I've known him forever. Huge asset for Palm Beach Dyno, working at HP Tuners. Hot Rod Magazine and Lethal Performance. Anyway, who else we got in here? West Virginia in the house. What's up, baby? TJ's here. David Carpenter's here talking about streetcars tonight. Or, you know, this is a very huge topic because there's so many ways for this to go. You guys saw the thumbnail. I have an angle I'm going at, but it's kind of open to however you guys want this to go. What's up, Carl? Brandon 50, what's up? All right, guys. So let's get right to the topic. First of all, one of the biggest arguments for the end of time on social media, in person, at the track, wherever, you could probably argue with yourself if you really tried, is, what is a street car? And although we could talk about that today, that's not exactly what I'm getting after. Because the issue is, everybody has their own definition of a street car, but even by going through some fairly strict, well, let me give you an example why I'm stumbling here, because I'm trying to figure out the best way to say it. But take somebody like Brett Lasala, right? He's on our thumbnail, one of the baddest street cars ever, really, in the history of street cars. So you may get people say, that's not a street car. I assume he doesn't have AC. I don't know. If he does, he does, but I doubt it. But who cares if it has AC? Is that a street car? Most of the street cars out there, nobody really wants to drive on the street. Like, you may take it out, go play with it at night, or, drive it on the street, but it's not a daily driver, right? So when you say street car, we're not talking about a car that you're going to just go drive because you got to go to the store, right? Brett's probably not going to hop in his car and go to Publix to get some food. He may do that just to prove a point or do a video, but he's not going to do that. I'm sure he would say the same thing. But what Brett did do, and really kind of shuts up the whole streetcar debate, is he went on a drag and drive event, multiple drag and drive events. I know he won Sick Week. I'm not sure if he won any other ones, but not only did he win his class, but he won the entire thing, competing against pro mods that, should easily beat him. Not anymore. And that's kind of what this is about, right? Things have changed at a huge pace. Huge. And we're going to go over that because two of the most popular streetcar classes, which is another very important topic for tonight. It's all related to the same thing, but I wanted to talk to everybody about the streetcar classes that are in like Texas 2K, FL2K, and I would assume Streetcar Takeover has it. They're not as well known, and they don't have the turnouts that FL2K in Texas do, because they're once a year events. So everybody comes out swinging for those. And this year in particular, people really came out swinging for in Texas. I mean, it was crazy. But by the same token, the fast guys were super fast, and I watched it from home. And I'll tell you what, I'm a huge fan. I want to see everybody run. But beyond the guys that were really trying to be at the top class, the qualifying was boring because everybody was sandbagging to not race Brett Lasala and not race the Lund car and not race all the 6-second cars that were in the top 16. So now it turns into like they've somewhat tricked everybody into running like index or bracket. And at the end, it still works out, right? The racing in Texas in each individual class was great, like super competitive. So the race itself, you know, everybody qualifying, taking the top 16, 16, 16, you know, it makes for really bad qualifying as a fan. But it did make for very good racing. So, you know, maybe they need to change up how the qualifying works. Maybe instead of just having an all-out qualifying for every car that's in street car and then breaking it up based on qualifying times, you have to go and enter a specific class and, you know, with specific rules. Obviously, the all-out street car class could just be all out, exactly what it is right now. And then the second one may have weight limits or turbo limits. The issue with that, and the reason they don't do that, is probably time and staffing. These races aren't made up of a ton, you know, they don't have a ton of staff working on this stuff. So it would be very difficult, I think, to make those rules. So they avoid making those rules. And that's worked up, and it's going to keep working. It's not like there's an issue, but I think it would make for much better racing if they were able to break that out a little bit better. Heavy Chevy, what's up? He's here but tired. JMS Performance is here. What's up, Chris? Carlos Sabrino, my brother. Streetcar. Tim says streetcar full interior, drive it to and from the track with 0 issues. Well, Brett Lasala does that. He drove 1,000 miles or whatever sick week was. So 620s is a streetcar. Then that's the issue. In my opinion, nobody wanted to race Brett in Texas. Not nobody. I mean, there was 16 cars in his class. Those guys didn't wind up in that bracket by mistake, but taking on Brett, where, you know, we know the car's gone 620s, and I'm watching it and he's 60 foot in the car at like 112, 115, which is a killer 60 foot for a street car, but not anywhere near what that car can do. So he was set up to win, which is fine. The definition of a street car is actually done. You know, and like I said, I'm not looking to define street cars, but I'm looking to address the race classes in particular. What's up, John? If it has lights, blinkers, licensed and titled with street legal tires, it's a street car. Well, guess what? Nobody's running on street legal tires because most of those tires are not street legal. SN95 Mustang, what's up? The action is the juice. What's up? Streetcar, full factory interior. Joel Steele. Joel Steele is another guy that should be part of this conversation. He doesn't run a streetcar, but he runs stick shift, which is crazier, I suppose. They don't really have as many rules there to try and make it a streetcar class, but and I don't know what the rule is there. Maybe Joel can chime in. You know, is it literally just H pattern? I think they've changed some rules to keep you out of it. I know you had some issues with Peter over the years and don't want to go there, but interested to hear your opinion on it. Dowdy Racing. How do you say that? Anyway, can't stop the evolution of our sport, but when the big money guys show up, it's hard for the average guy to compete. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. But I am not one of those guys. Maybe someday I aspire to be one of those guys. I'd like to be out there mixing it up with Brett, and money is one of the reasons that I'm not. Time is another reason. But it's not just about money. There's been plenty of people that have probably spent way more than Brett on a street car and yet aren't anywhere near in the ballpark. And, I think some of you guys realize what Brett's done, but really we're going to go over some qualifying over the last couple of years of Texas and Florida to really drive home the point as to where that class has gone so quickly. JMS says he's come up with simple rules for a street car. Pump gas or 85, no cage, proper street tire, no slicks, drag radials, etc. You make that shit work, and you got my vote. Well, you brought up another topic. You can have a fuel rule that will help this out. I don't know what fuel Brett's running at the street car events, and I don't know if methanol is legal, but that's one way to slow people down a little bit, is not allowing methanol or, having fuel checks in general, because if there's no fuel check, you could tell me I can only run this or that, but, if you're not checking it, then it doesn't really matter. If you keep your full interior, then you're handicapping yourself. Well, that's true, but, at some point, that's the point, is to handicap things. Brett doesn't have full interior, and I don't think he needs that full interior. You can't argue Brett's car being a street car when he's driven it from track to track to track to track, run fast, had very little issues, or was at least able to fix it. Carter says single or twins for a 1200 wheel stick shift car. I'm always a twins kind of guy. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a single kit, but I prefer twins. The only reason for me to run a single is if the rules require it. Like if you're running heads up like 275, X275 or something like that, that's all single turbo stuff. Noel says JMS, the no cage rule you can't have apply. Yeah, definitely. There's no way you could have no cage. These cars are going too fast. People will just get hurt. Everybody seems to be really focused on the interior, which I'm not sure I totally can get behind. We'll say hi to a few more people here, get caught up, and then I want to show you guys some of what I'm talking about. If you can drive it back and forth to the track, it's hard to bitch. Trailer queens, on the other hand. Well, that's true, but, that's another good topic, is the whole trailer queen thing. Somebody gave me shit about trailering my truck to the no prep race in Immokalee, which is like 2.5 hours away. And that's just being smart, right? It's 2.5 hours away. I'm trailering it because it's so street. It has stock drive shaft, stock converter, stock transmission, stock differential. If anything goes wrong when I'm at 2.5 hours away, that's like an entire day of waste for me to come all the way home, which obviously I can get a ride, but let's say I didn't have any friends, I'd have to get home somehow, get my Super Duty and my trailer, and then go back and get it. Or I can just bring it there on the trailer. It just makes more sense. Chris says registered, licensed, plate, insured, street legal tires. Well, that's another time people have said street legal tires. Like, most of the tires people are running are not really street legal in most areas, and they're not legal in general. The street legal class seems to have become a class for the fastest modified cars, but there should be a spectrum of street cars from AC with full interior and brake booster, then ranging to all out. I agree with that, and that's kind of what I'm getting at. Instead of having a one catch-all class, and I hesitate to say this, but I feel like it's a little lazy by the rules makers. They don't want to come down and figure out a way how to separate everybody, and then they just go, well, like, let's just let everybody sandbag and make it suck for the fans. That's kind of how I see it, if I'm going to be honest. JQ Public says everyone has their definition to weed out their automotive biases, including myself. That's true. There's a difference between a street car and a streetable race car. Well, and as you can guess, most of the cars that are, well, first off, I agree, but who's going to define it? Is that up to you? Because your definition is going to probably be different than my definition. So that's why this argument is eternal, because it's really hard to come to any sort of conclusion by just defining a street car. Daily versus street car is way different. Daily must have full interior. David Carpenter, still need money to play. Without it, you can never advance your program. Absolutely. Money's definitely important, but money does not make you fast. It's just sort of like happiness, right? You can there's some people that could be happy with no money, but there's not many, right? Money doesn't make you happy, but it enables you to do things that make you happy, or enables you to have a peace of mind in your finances to make you happy, all those things. So money, it comes down to money for a lot of things. Jonathan says, can you pass a state inspection and fill up at a gas station? That would be the most boring racing I've ever seen, because none of those cars can pass state inspection, except for me, because we don't have state inspection in Florida. So that's the other problem. Whose state are you going by? Because lots of people don't have state inspection. Yeah, that's what Tim just said. TJ said full interior isn't always safe. Have to remove things at certain speeds. That's, yeah. Well, first off, like a better seat when you're going real fast, it's a great idea. Craig says streetcar is loose term these days. Many different classes of streetcar. You can daily it. I consider a streetcar. Absolutely. Jason Miller, what's up? How's it going? John says, yeah, it's also need to run fuel. You can get at the pump, not race E85. I'm not sure about that. To me, here's my opinion on race E85 and pump gas. I daily drive my F-150. It makes 900 wheel, and I run it every day on pump E85. But I'm not doing quarter mile hit after quarter mile hit after quarter mile hit, getting it hot, having to turn it around in a race environment. When I'm doing that, I prefer to have, I don't run like one ethanol R in it unless that's all I have. I'll run like S or X85, which is really just kind of like regular E85 at the pump, but it's just ensuring that it's good stuff. So David says the sandbagging sucks, but when there's a 1 second spread from 1 to 16, these guys have no choice. Exactly the point. Thank you, sir. So what do we do about it? Do we just sit back and do nothing about it and go, oh, that sucks, but that's just how it is? Nope. We got to come up with a better plan. That's what I'm voting for. We have to have a way to where people can qualify as fast. Like, here's a good example. So I don't even tune this car. Cody Rogers, he holds the 6-speed 6R80 record. I watched the Texas live feed partially to watch his car, at least in the beginning. And then I realized he's not going to set a new record. He's not going to go as fast as he possibly can. I'm not going to see some new performance from Cody because he's playing the game, which I don't blame him. Spent a lot of money, a lot of time and effort to drive. I forget where he's from, Maryland area, somewhere around there, over to Texas and back, right? So you can go, like, I'm the dumbass that would go if I was Cody and my car was as fast as Cody, which it used to be, maybe someday again. I'm the dumbass who'd be like, I'm here to compete with the best in the world, and I'm going to run my car out, and if I wind up number 16 in street car in the top class, then that's a victory, and if I go out first round, big deal. But you know what? That's stupid, and I am stupid, but not everybody's going to do that. So Robbie says he's a fan of what Brett is doing, but that's 3-piece front end, chassis car. It's not even, if it's not in an event, you would never see that car in the street. Probably, but I mean, he could. Obviously, he drives it around for a sick week and stuff like that. All right, so we're going to stop with the comments for a second. I want to go over some performances in street car up to this point. So here you go. That worked out pretty well, actually, I think. So this is FL2K 2022. Now, even though I wouldn't want to admit it, Texas is generally a little faster than the Florida race, but it does have a lot of the same people show up. So this is 2022. So the top 3 cars were 6-second cars with, if you throw out, well, they're all kind of spread out pretty well, 670, 680, 690. Then the next guy is 730, right? So at a 730, he's going to have somebody down here for first round. But at any one point, okay, maybe he went a 736 and, he's got to race this Cletus 690 somewhere second, third round. That's 0.4 seconds, but maybe, that's Jim Braun, actually. I tagged him in my post today. I didn't even realize it was Jim. So Jim, who's a lot faster than this now, maybe he decides, okay, I want a 630, but I haven't turned my car up. I'm going to turn it up. I think I can go with 20. And maybe if I catch Cletus on the light, I'm in good shape, right? Well, that's really starting to fade away at this point because the gap is so frigging huge. So now we'll go back to Texas 2023. I don't have a qualifying style sheet, but this is first round. You got to just jump around a little bit. Number one qualifier, right? So FL2K was actually a faster field than Texas the next spring because Brett was the only 6-second car, at least in qualifying. He went a 693. And then number 2 was a 7.0. And then number 3 was a 7.1. And number 4 was a 7.20. So this was a super tight field. And at any one point, if somebody slips up, you might have a shot at them. Like even number 6 was a 736. And number 1 was a 796. You're, 3 or 4 tenths, which is a lot. Don't get me wrong, but somewhat reasonable. Okay. So now let's fast forward to FL2K 2023, the next year. This time, FL2K 2023 was actually slower in general than 22. The only 6-second car you had was Danny Coots, 694, which that car was kicking a lot of butt before Danny bought it. I believe it's the same car. And I spoke to that owner, and even then, when the car was going 690s, he said to me, I asked him, I said, well, why'd you get out of a street car? And he's like, I felt like I was puppy kicking. And I guess that's kind of what I'm getting at here, right? So even here, 690, 720, 720, 730, that's tight enough to make some good racing. Now, fast forward to Texas of this year, and Jesus, look at this. 6 cars in the 6s, and Brett going 226 with a 646. And if I had to guess, that was like a 120 60 foot, which is super slow for him. And that's why it's a 646 at 226 instead of a 620 or better, because he knows he doesn't need to 60 foot the car and he wants to be consistent and just run it over and over again. And then you've got Jeremy Sparks. I'm from watching it, I know the car. I don't know him. And then you've got Lund at 673, 208. Brian Cummins, 676 at 209. 677, 213. I mean, actually, and there was more 6-second cars than this, right? If you go down, and they just didn't get there. Aldo Welds is right here, number 8. That car is 6-second capable. Joe Holt ran a 6 in eliminations. Brian Luna has been 6s before. He had a wreck, I believe, so he couldn't go any faster. Jason Magnum, 701 at 194. That's a pretty good spread. He might be able to go quicker. So realistically, on this sheet, we've got 6 6-second cars, but there could have been 8 to 9 or 10. So when now all of a sudden Jordan Martin, which not sure how fast that car's been. Let's use a different example. Travis, 752. Okay. If he had to run a 7.0 car, that would be bad enough. He's a half a second off. But Brett is at the top of the class almost a whole second. That gets to the point of being completely unrealistic of ever winning that race under any circumstance. And I believe that's really what I'm getting at. So a combination of A, having to sandbag to be able to have a good race is already a failure in my point. And then to, if you decide, hey, I'm not going to sandbag, you're going to be outclassed by a second. And, most of these cars, I'll go back to that real quick. This is Texas, all right? You've got Florida, Tennessee, Florida, Louisiana, Minnesota, Tennessee, Texas, Missouri, New Mexico, Louisiana, Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Illinois. These people traveled a long way. I mean, considering this is Texas 2K, 1, 2, 3, 4 street cars out of 16 at their home race. Oh, that's kind of an interesting stat, actually. Let's look at FL2K real quick. So in the top 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 cars out of the 16 were in the top 16, with the bump being 804. And then Texas the bump was lower, but only 4 from Texas. So from that, I basically am going to say Florida's better. Just kidding. I don't know. Florida, I think more people travel to Texas than Florida. Florida's somewhat more of a local race, but it's not really a local race. Anyway, I'm going to go over some of you guys' comments, see what we're talking about. How about weight? A certain percentage plus or minus from stock weight? Nope, not from stock weight, because then people are going to argue, well, what trim was that stock weight? And, my F-150 weighs this, and but the full out one weighs this, or, you can't do it that way. If you're going to do it, there just needs to be a minimum weight for any particular class. Brett's makes the rules difficult or creative for other street style classes. Got to get in where you fit in. Yeah, I agree. And that's really the problem. I'm not saying I have a solution, and that's kind of why I want to hear from you guys. Jason asks, wastegate setup on his P1X turbo technology is fabbing up my pipe and wastegate. What size pulley and belt? That'd be a better question to shoot us an email. I got to sit down, do math and all that. But if you shoot us an email, we can help you out with that. Thank you very much. M4 Motorsports with the tip. Power windows and full interior with Snot Rocket 1.5 and can run 680 to 690, but that's not competitive, heads up. So sandbagging it is. Well, interesting that you bring up Snot Rocket 1.5. I love Zach Myers. He's an awesome dude. I consider him a friend. But that's another card that I had tuned in to watch at the Texas race. So him and Cody, and they wound up racing each other with two cars that, go to a lot of races I go to. I know both of those guys. It's boring. I didn't enjoy watching either one of their cars because they were not going as fast as they could. Zach obviously was trying to avoid Snot Rocket 2. And, he was going mid-7s, which is great. It's fast. I mean, that's fast. If we didn't know what that car can do, nobody would say anything, but we know what it'll do. I'm perfectly happy with my PBD Tune 1150 NA index car, and I even trailer it. Nothing wrong with trailering it in my book. By the way, congrats on the 717 build. Nice build for sure. Oh, street speed. I didn't do anything with that car. I just dynoed it. We didn't actually install the blower. That was Lujan down in Miami. Tim, trailer is the way to go. No argument there. But if you're driving back and forth, you got to give them trailer boys shit. Just in saying that we're talking about 6-second street cars these days, I remember getting tossed off the track for running 11s with no cage back when dinosaurs roamed the earth. Building a car for a class is the way to go. Want to fit in 950, 860, or Outlaw open, take your pick. But see, that to me, like, no, I'm not throwing any shade at 860 street race, but that doesn't, I would never race that unless I just happen to have a car that I'm like, well, I'm in between things. Like, let me go run 860 street race. I want to show up at a race and try to go faster than I've ever gone. Figure things out, figure out ways to go faster. That's what's fun about drag racing to me. when all of a sudden you know exactly what your car will run and you're slowing it down by 3 or 4 tenths. That's easy. It's very easy to go slower. I mean, not for some people, but once you turn down a car like Brett's car, I showed you, he went 640 something at 226. If he would have really got after it, it would have been much quicker. But he doesn't have to, and he's not going to, because he's there to win a race. And I don't blame him for that. That's the point, right? To win. So my point is I want to get these classes. I have nothing to do with any of these classes, by the way. Rules or input. I know Victor, Bradenton, and we were a sponsor of Texas, but we don't have any input on those, and I'm not sure they would listen to me anyway. I want to figure out a way to where somebody like Brett, and Brett's not a good example because he's at the top of the top, so he would need other people to pressure him by going quicker for him to go quicker. But outside the top 16, like I'll use Cody as an example again. I believe he was in the second class. Well, there should be a rule set that makes him fit in the second class. He's legal for the second class, and whether he can run a 760 or a 7.0, it doesn't matter. He's in the second class because his car is built, weighs the correct amount, has the proper parts on it. However you want to do it. You can do minimum weights, or maximum turbo size, maximum blower size. But like I said, to undertake that sort of rule set is, probably very difficult for most people to do. But when we're talking about, look at this, FL2K, is that FL2K? Yeah, this is FL2K 2022. There was 84 street cars that showed up for that race. Okay. Well, maybe we can all get together somehow, or some people can get together and write rule set. I did it. I wrote the rules for Coyote Stock and NMRA, when I decided that this would be a great class. Here's what we need to do. Here's how it's going to work. Here's the rule set and all that. I'm not saying I'm the guy to do this, but there's got to be somebody out there that's capable of it and willing to give the time to better the whole racing environment. I want all these guys that show up that I follow. I mean, there's cars, all of them that I've mentioned. I don't tune any of them. I'm just watching them as a fan, like anybody else out there. And, but I want to see them go for it every pass. What's the track going to hold? What can I do? I think I can get a better 60-foot. Nope. None of that shit's happening. Maybe once they get their spot on the ladder, then they may go after it, but then they lift, so I don't know. I sound salty, and I am. Sublime GT, what's up? Hey, Bernard, how's it going? Team Whole Shot, how much boost have you ran on stock sleeves and what timing? I've done the whole timing conversation before. That's just not a valid question to me, because there's so many other things that have to go into that math calculation. What cams are they? What cam timing? What compression ratio? What quench on the piston? I mean, it's such a complex topic. And when people break it down on Facebook, and I see, they're quoting like timing like it's what fuel you're running, like it's just a standard. Timing is not a fixed number. In fact, we're not going to go down that road. We could talk about that some other time. Maybe we'll have a tuning specific live feed at some point. How much faster can the factory stock casting Coyote block go? Well, I don't know. I don't know what Brett's car weighs, and I'm sure it's pretty light. Is it as light as it possibly can be? That I can't answer. Let's consider that there's no room to move on the weight. So you're not going to go faster from that. I think he's 60 foot. He went a 401 recently in the 8th mile, and he went a 105 60 foot. Is it possible to go quicker than that? Possibly. The red car out of FM Motorsports, those guys, Gus, they posted a sub 1 second 60-foot slip. And, that's a whole another thing to get into. There was a lot of people questioning that slip and that something tripped it weird. And I'm not really sure. I was too busy to really even get involved in any of those conversations. But maybe it went a sub 10 60 foot. But either way, most of your gains are going to come from more power. And it's not like adding 100 horsepower adds a significant amount of ET at that level. You have to add a huge amount of horsepower. So while I think Brett will go quicker than he's gone, I think his best quarter mile is a 620 something, but that was not with a 1060 foot or a 401. So, is he going to go a 61, a 60? Maybe we see a 5-second car. I don't know. But I think he's probably approaching the limits. Now, the question is this, is like, okay, he's approaching the limits, but is it solvable with a cast block? Before anybody sleeved it, we started to realize where the limit was, and then sleeving the block was the answer for most people. So if Brett tries to make, who knows what he's making right now. Let's say he's making 3,000, like he says. Let's say he turns it up to 3,200 and it has a failure. Maybe there's something he can do to that block to make it survive. So that's a little hard to answer that. But currently there's no new path forward from that. Lots of applications have billet blocks that are water cooled. We do not. I know MMR does advertise one on their website, but I don't know anybody that's ever bought it or used it or reported any kind of results. So as far as I know, we do not have any option for a billet block for a true street car, meaning that there's water running through it. All right, look at a couple more comments here. Your vision is right. Win by going as fast as you can. Yeah, I mean, otherwise they've just tricked us into being bracket racers, haven't they? Right? Hey, let's get 85 people to show up, and we're just gonna play with the numbers through all the qualifying, and we're really not gonna know exactly what every car can run, and I don't know. I mean, at the end, well, even in eliminations, they lower the ET, but there's still a breakout. And I believe there was at least 1 or 2 losses in Texas due to a breakout. A breakout? What is this? You know what I mean? Is this like weekend summit points or something? I don't know. Anyway, what's more important, being competitive or winning? Well, I think what's most important is having fun. And it took me a long time to learn that. I'd never had fun drag racing. I raced in the Anna Marais for 7 years straight at every single race, either as a racer or helping a racer, and I barely had any fun. I enjoyed my friends. I enjoyed hanging out with my friends, but I didn't enjoy racing because I had the wrong attitude. Thankfully, I was always part of a competitive team, or usually part of a competitive team. So I would go into those races expecting to win. So if I won, it was just like, okay, we won. Plan worked out, but I wasn't happy or excited about it. But I don't look at it that way anymore. I don't take it as seriously. It's a serious thing. You got to be serious about your safety. You have to be serious. If you want the car to run well, you don't want to make a fool out of yourself. You want it to run well, of course. But to me, just being out there and having competitive side-by-side races, even if you happen to lose that race, is the most fun to me. As a tuner, what's your thoughts on a meth car adding nitrous to achieve your goals? Because for me, it's a cheaper route for now. Well, you definitely want to be careful taking anything because it's the cheaper route. Because oftentimes the cheaper route turns out to be the more expensive route, especially when you're talking about nitrous. There's nothing wrong with nitrous. I've had nitrous on a lot of my vehicles. I had nitrous on my Super Duty. But, it's sort of like playing with fire. You can get away with it for a while, but unless you're super hardcore about how you handle your stuff, there's a very good chance you're going to have some sort of small failure that can lead to a much, much larger failure. Did you ever think that the Coyote stock would be as fast as they are now? I thought about that, but no, definitely not. But when I invented Coyote stock, it was with the Gen 1 Coyote, which they're not that fast. You can make them fast. And obviously, we do all kinds of cool stuff with fuel that we run, but NMRA has a very strict rule on fuel, and they check the fuel, and there's always ways to cheat, I'm sure. But for the most part, I think most people are following those rules. But we basically saw a nice performance increase at each generation of Coyote. And, I wasn't sure. The biggest, we're talking about rules. The biggest contribution I made to Coyote stock, other than getting the rule set done and getting the relationship with Ford Racing established, sealed motors, all that was like before the class really started to get it going. But the one way that I am happy that I was involved in to keep it going was after the first few races, the turnout wasn't that great. So they started trying to tweak the rules and let's allow automatics in the class and, give them a weight break. And I'm like, no, that's totally opposite the goal of that class. The goal of the class was nobody was going to play the rules games. There was going to be one set rule for everybody because everybody's running the same engine. Everybody's running the same tune. The rest of it's up to you, whatever clutch you want to run, whatever suspension you want to run. You got to drive the car, all those things. But I didn't want different rules for different combinations, and I fought for that super heavily. That's, and back then, there was 2 or 3 cars showing up and they were going like 1070s, 1080s. Now they're going a second faster. That's crazy. More brackets within the street car class, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10-second classes. That just makes it like an index class at that point. That doesn't excite me at all, and I think over time it might fade. Carter's TV says, can you run an ID 1700 on pump gas? I need the larger injector to hit 25 PSI on a turbo car. You can. You may not have the best idle quality, but you can definitely do it. Von Lipsch Racing. For the normal, you guys are giving me hard things to pronounce here. For the normal guy with just a decent build, it's not inspiring to go drag racing. There's lots of boosted Coyotes that would probably go drag racing if there was a good competitive class. David Carpenter, don't forget the iron block from Ford Racing. I told you I'm glad you showed up. I did forget about that. It remains to be seen. Just because it's iron doesn't mean it's indestructible. So I don't know if you decided to do one in your car or what your plan is, but I'm definitely curious to see somebody push that thing really hard. Back in the day, it was like, no way am I running an iron block. But, that's also when people weren't running such a heavy weight bias in the front. Now that people are running a heavy weight bias in the front on radials and the way suspension works nowadays, maybe it's a good option. JQ Public, kudos to Brad. He found the formula. He gives up cubes for cylinder head flow, cam timing, and RPM. He can dial a safe launch and spin up a highly efficient engine at the top of the track. Absolutely. But, if I had the budget, I would love to be out there pushing him, making him 60-foot his car, because if he doesn't, I'm going to gap him. But realistically, that's not going to happen. Ever. But maybe someday, but definitely not in the next couple years. And by then, Brett's probably going to be faster or moved on to racing jets or something. I don't know. Tim says, bracket racing just isn't fun to me. I mean, I get it and it has its place, but I get what you're saying, Ken. Yeah, and I'm not trying to throw any shade at bracket racers. It's fun. I like anything competitive, right? At the end of the day, if I can compete, I will have fun that day. Well, that's not true. I just got done telling you I didn't have that much fun when I was racing. But I did. It was a different kind of fun. It was a challenging fun. It was, made me think hard constantly about how can we go faster? How can we get the advantage? And all those sorts of things. But when you're doing this street car or sandbagging type racing, you don't have to do that as much. You're more worried about, I better not break out. I better run an ET that doesn't put me in the top class. And to me, That's practically ruined it. Are they going to limit chassis, or are they going to let full-blown chassis cars in street car? It depends on what you call a chassis car. I mean, is Brett's car a chassis car? I don't know, you know. That's, you know, well, something to bring up is Brett runs street car in Texas, but in Florida, if we bring up street car 2023, he's not on there because he runs the 28 class, probably because he doesn't want to scare away everybody that was on that list. And I don't blame him, because nobody wants to be that guy. You know, Brett's done a phenomenal job. Jim Braun, you know, everybody that's on his team, it's a group of all-stars. So of course, not of course, but it's not a stretch that they're going to take significant steps forward where nobody else has. But when you get to that point, is it fun for Brett to show up to these streetcar classes and have half a second, 3/4 tenths on the entire class without hardly like pushing the car? I bet you it's not. And, you know, I think he's out there proving a point right now. But if I had to guess, and I haven't spoken to Brett at all about this, but if I had to guess, he's not going to do that forever. I'm sure he enjoys the drag and drive stuff, and he's going to continue to do that maybe. But, you know, classes like this 28 class, that may be a good way for them to pull out the fastest of the fast street cars into more of that deal. But then you have, you know, people like Victor with the Supra calling out Brett's street car with some race Supra with a 500 shot of nitrous and, you know, all that stuff, and it weighs like 1,200 pounds. I'm just kidding. I hope somebody clips that and sends it to Victor. But it's true. I don't believe that's a street car. And, you know, that's the conversations that Brett's getting into. He's fighting with full-out race cars. I think that car has a billet block and everything. Robbie says light prep instead of radial prep and shut the boards off. You know, the problem with like light prep is then you get into like people arguing like, well, the prep was better for him than it was for me. So either you got to try and make a good track for everybody and consistent, or the other way, which is no prep, which, you know, I plan on doing some no prep racing with my truck because it's 4-wheel drive. But other than that, I don't love the idea. Mr. Joe says, what's up, PBD? My S550 will be there Friday and getting the twin turbo Hellion kit with the new engine. By the way, do you have a stock engine CPU for S550 2015? I do not. Brandy says I was mean. Cody's here. You missed everything. I talked about you a bunch. You'll have to go back and watch it. I'm not telling you again. You should have been on time. I'm reading your comment. Well, I'll read it. What did I miss? What opinion can I give? Think I made my point on my last few posts. I will not be going back to 2K, the Sandbag Nationals. I don't even think the Elite 8 fixes it. I did not see your post about not going back, and the Sandbagging Nationals was pretty much what I said. I tuned in to watch cars like you and Zach and Charles Sidoti, who's built next door, and they just got done with that new build. And none of them, I mean, Charles ran a new best, but his car's probably capable of a lot more than what it ran. But that's kind of what you missed. It's Sandbag Nationals. It's really shitty for a spectator. Now, maybe a spectator that doesn't really keep up to every individual car. They're just seeing a bunch of fast cars going to the track. Oh, that's cool. Yay. But if you're a true fan and you know what all these cars are, then I think it sucks. Brian says tires should be the limiting factor. They've tried that, though. They have like the 235 class, and those cars are fast as hell. I think they go 4 still in the 8th mile. Luis A. Ken, I bought a tune last week from you guys, but I haven't finished the fuel system. Do you have a certain time to send you guys the tune back or no? Nope. We don't have any limits. If you paid me for something, you're going to get it. Even if you go to jail for a year and hit us up when you get out, we'll still tune your car. That's happened. All right. Anyway, actually, that didn't happen with a tune, but that happened with a customer dropping his car off at my shop, and then I couldn't get in touch with him for 6 months. And then he called me up, and he had just gotten out of jail. No prep is a big thing right now, and there are not many Coyote cars dominating that type of racing. Only person I know is Todd Spires. I'm trying to build a budget Coyote car to see if it is possible. And do you think it's possible to build a competitive no prep street race car? Well, the no prep thing is, I mean, if you really want to be successful, it definitely requires a different chassis setup and weight biases and all that. But people go back and forth, I believe. Eric Holiday, what's up? Must be talking about Texas 2K. Yeah, you know, we were a sponsor this year, and I didn't go for a variety of reasons. And I'm not going to be a sponsor again, not particularly because they did anything wrong or I'm upset with them. Is we're just pulling back on spending so much crazy money on the sponsorships that we were doing. And I, you know, it's crazy for me to spend so much money sponsoring these things, because at the end of the day, I do that to support these races, not necessarily because it's a great advertising or it brings me more business. So it's kind of silly of me to not even have my race car done due to budget, yet I'm giving out tens of thousands of dollars a year to sponsor races. So if I ever get to the point where I can have my race car there and spend that money on the sponsorship, I will do that. But for right now, I'm going to try to put that money towards my race car so I can support the race as a racer instead of just some guy standing by a trailer with nothing to race. Mike Dez is building a no prep Coyote. I bet he does well with it. That is not a shocker to me that he would do well with it. Mike Dez is a pro, been around forever, knows all the tricks, and knows enough people to get more tricks if he needs them. Sensors are changing the game. Now cars are working better with less prep and less tire. Absolutely. You know, and that's another good angle to take on this conversation. And Eric Holiday would probably be somebody to chime in on this. He does a lot of like really fast cars, tuning and just crew chiefing and helping people. And I know a lot of the Motec cars are using traction control, but then of course you have the Davis stuff that people use with non-Motec ECUs. And how much is that really being leaned on? I would say probably a good amount, but traction control isn't one of those things that it's just like, oh, well, I don't need to know what I'm doing. I have traction control. It doesn't work like that, as far as I know. I don't have a ton of experience with race traction control in drag racing environment, but you still have to know what you're doing. It's not really going to work on the hit, as far as I know, unless something new has come out. So it's helpful, and it's helpful to save like a completely busted run and turn it into like a pretty good run. But I'm guessing that most of the fastest runs, the traction control is not really getting involved. There's a bunch of fast no prep cars. Absolutely. Yeah. It's just my problem with no prep is I like really, really nice shit. You know what I mean? I like my car to look like a show car for as long as I can. And I would just be paranoid to wreck it. You know, it's already easy enough to wreck at a regular drag strip with the prep, let alone a no prep. What about Lund stock ECU and the trans? Pretty impressive. 2 Coyotes in the final. Absolutely. I mentioned them earlier. They're there. I mean, they ran a few 670s, but like I said, even they were like 2 or 3 qualifier, but they're still not really close enough to challenge Brett unless Brett messes up. And he's not going to mess up because he knows that he's got at least 2 or 3 tenths, at least, even not trying to 60 foot the car very well. So you just wind up in a losing battle there, I think. Even, you know, like I said, Lund's a perfect example. If they would have went 670s 2 or 3 years ago, they would have been number 1 qualifier. Now, you know, they don't have enough for somebody like Brett. What about roll race? Can a Coyote beat a GTR mile per hour? No, definitely not. I don't believe so. Not in a roll. You just can't get it to leave right. And just as a pure top mile an hour type competition, you know, I forget his name. There was a guy that was running Texas and went really, really fast. He was one of the fastest probably the fastest Mustang ever at Texas at a roll race, but you just can't leave with the GTRs and the Lambos. Do you think PETA comprehends that when all these cars are at an event like World Cup, they would be in 3 to 5 different classes? I'm a fan of a slim rule set, but geez. That's a good point, Cody. Now, here's one thing you have to remember about World Cup. World Cup has a rule set, like I spoke about earlier, where we need a rule set. So, like Cody, when you go to the race, you're entering one class. It has a specific set of rules, and then, you know, that's it. You go as fast as you want. If you happen to have gamed the rules to have an advantage, so be it. They'll change it next year. But the important thing to remember is Jason does not write all the rules like from scratch, right? He's using crossover rules. So we'll bring Lund up again. They won Street Fighter last year. They were using the crossover rules from the 6R80 class in Mod Nationals, and that's because somebody campaigned and said, we want to bring these 6R80 cars to Street Fighter, and we want to use that rule set. So they used the same exact rule set from a different sanctioning body or whatever you want to call it, maybe modify it, maybe. Uh-oh. All right, I don't know if you guys lost me for a minute. I got a message that you did. Let's see. Louis says, what's the difference between IAT2 and ACT? Because the sensor I bought from BMP to be able to tune the car says ACT, IAT. Well, it just matters where the sensor is put. It's you can use sensors wherever you want, really, but IAT2 is generally going to be after the supercharger. What about locked ECUs S650 and TCU DCT T-Trans and GT500? Nothing new there. I've got Kelly Aiken's S650 Whipple car on the dyno right behind that wall there. It's doing pretty good. Eric says we can use the traction control to basically make the car run exactly what we want. So if we load a 105 tune, you can set the car up accordingly for the conditions, weight packages, and so on. Yeah. See, so really what it's kind of morphed into with traction control and just electronics in general. And Coyote street cars are a perfect example of it. And then drag racing has multiplied the effect, which is before the Coyote, we didn't have wide bands. We didn't have independent cam timing. We didn't have awesome knock sensors. So the technology is what has brought the Coyote street car game through the roof. I mean, if we didn't have all those things I just said, they would not be as fast. They'd be like Camaros. Sorry, I had to say that. Well, actually, they wouldn't be like Camaro because they don't exist anymore. That same idea has not morphed, but carried over to drag racing, where you have wheelie ride height sensors. You have all types of accelerometers people are running. You have traction control, different versions of traction control. It's just insane what you can do with technology, and it's only accelerating so fast. Back to the original topic, it could be somewhat like let the wind out of your sails a little bit. Like I said, my car's been down for a few years, and I've had these dreams of doing certain things, and when it comes back out, I'm gonna do this and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, Brett, for the most part, was the one, and Lund, took the wind out of my sails with that whole idea. I'm like, well, shit. Like, at this point, what am I going to do? Go out and run a 5? How am I going to... My best case scenario is to be able to run close to them. That's best case scenario right now. So it does, the progression of the sport is great, but it's getting to the point that it's like, well, I guess that just happens with every evolution is, you get to a certain point, you're like, there's no way people are going to go, probably when guys just first started going 6s in streetcar type classes, people would be like, oh, well, that's it, man. They ran a 6. It's over. They ruined it. And now, I wouldn't say a 620 is knocking on the door of a 5-second quarter mile pass, but it's getting a lot closer. That's for sure. Coyotes compete with the GTRs, but rear-wheel drive is a handicap and stock ECU. I do not agree. They cannot compete with GTRs. Not in a roll race. No way. No how. Because you're never going to get the power down early enough to be able to hit that speed. I'm just talking. I'm talking two things. One is in a side-by-side race, there's no way in hell. No way in hell. Now, if you're just talking for top mile an hour on any specific distance or track, they can get a little closer, but not close enough. Anyone know a good setup for a max effort GT350? Twin turbo, Hellion twin turbo kit. I love those kits. They're awesome. They're usually in stock or shipped fairly quickly. No worries about a million different custom parts, things not fitting. We do a lot of those, and I love them. John says, what do you think if Ford and Shelby will make a new Shelby GT500 all-wheel drive like F-150 style to switch? Nah, they're not going to do that. It would be nice, but you're dreaming. I thought at some point maybe we would see that, but not anymore. I understand some of the fastest snow prep cars look like junk, but run low fours like Ryan Mitchell and Beater Bomb, just to name a few. Yeah, no, that's probably by design. They could probably make a nice car, but they realize that shit happens on the street and on no prep. So, why polish it up if it's going to get messed up quickly? I need some pointers on tracking down false knock after high RPM shifts with my P1X. Stock everything next to P1X unit and X pipe. Is it really just the thing to live with on Pro Chargers? No, definitely not. Now, are you sure it's false knock? What have you done to troubleshoot false knock? The number one easiest way to troubleshoot false knock is to put octane in the car. And if it goes away, then there's a very good chance it's false knock. If it doesn't go away, then you have real knock. The problem is everybody talks so much about false knock, then they start assuming like if I have knock, it must be false knock. Not necessarily. So be careful because it may be trying to tell you something. But on a Pro Charger unit, I've seen all sorts of things cause it, or not just Pro Charger, any kind of supercharger setup. If you have anything loose or like a tensioner that's going bad and it's flopping around more, it's definitely it could be hard to track down. That's for sure. So you really shouldn't be dealing with that. So you just have to be sure you don't have real knock. Drag racing is fun and all, but when are we going to hit up Sebring and do some road course stuff? Well, I had planned to do that. Well, when I first got into Mustangs back in the early 2000s, that was my game plan, to be a road racer. I didn't actually have a whole lot of interest in drag racing. And then I got sidetracked with drag racing and sidetracked. And now 30 years later, 20 years later, I still haven't done any road racing. I'm involved in road racing. I've done Daytona. I've tuned cars at Daytona, but I just haven't done it myself. So I'd like to. I don't have a GT500 anymore to bring. Something happened to that at Texas. Cody says, what's your opinion on the outlawed twin turbo Coyotes and rule sets? A lot of classes are limiting the Coyote engine to a single 76, and I'm fighting to find somewhere to race. Well, I understand it, because if you take a full out race car, like for instance, I don't know exactly what your car 8th miles, but I think it goes 480s, maybe, even if it goes a high 470. There's Coyote powered cars that are faster than that with a single 76. So how do you so the example would be, let's say you have twin 68s on your car right now. If nothing against your car, but it's max effort for you. You're doing it yourself. It's an awesome car, but if you were to get super crazy with it and lighten it up and do every little trick in the book you could and not have to deal with the challenges of the 6R80 and all that, you would be going sixes probably, you know? So that's really where it comes from. It's, you have to make the rule set. We dealt with this all the time in the NMRA, and that's why I invented Coyote stock. Very specifically why, because the rules, we were always fucking with the rules, and it was just, well, you know, let's say everybody's running a certain ET, then somebody that's trying really hard with the same combo comes out and runs 0.2 quicker than everybody else, then everybody with that combo gets penalized. And that's what's happening to you with the twin turbos. Somebody can come out there with a full-on race car that's a street car, and with twin 68s or even 64s, they're going to go 7.0s, 690s or something like that, or even faster. So, you know, I don't know the answer to that. And that's why I like classes like the street car class. So I don't think it should just go away. I think, you know, and like you said, you're not going back. And maybe with Texas, that may be the right angle to take, because I'm not so sure that Peter is really open to changing much, especially since at the end of the day, it turned out fairly well. Obviously, if people stop showing up to his race for that particular class, he'll address it, but that would take a year or two to develop. It would have to be 1 year of just a little bit slower and going, I wonder if something's up. And the next year slower, and the next year slower. And then all of a sudden, hey, we got to do something about streetcar. To me, you got to do something about it now. So I'm not so sure that Victor would do anything about it at FL2K. But, you know, there just needs to be a lot of conversation about it. And maybe that's part of, I don't know, you know, sometimes if you try to get too complicated and, you know, overcomplicated, it could be shitty. But maybe there needs to be some sort of like streetcar racer association that people can like give real feedback that's listened to and talked about, and all those sorts of things, instead of just people making random comments on Facebook, or like you said, Cody, you talked about it and you said your piece on Facebook, and, you know, we're friends on Facebook. I see your post, but I didn't see that one. So there needs to be some sort of collection of all these thoughts and how people feel, and not, I mean, Brett could be in there, Victor from Bradenton can be in there, Mike Reich, all the fast guys are important, but they're the small part. We want to try to hear from the other 70 people in the class that want the same kind of competitive racing. Yeah, there you go. Haley's been 440s on a 76 millimeter turbo with a Boss intake. I mean, that's insane. That's insane. So how can you argue that, you know, oh, well, they're pulling back the class to a 76 millimeter. It's like 440s. That's friggin' moving, you know? So I don't know the answer. Can you use a Hellion twin turbo kit off a Gen 1 or a Gen 3? Yeah, if you're asking about a GT350, probably not. Well, it depends. Depends on what headers you're going to use. TJ says he has a good car for me to take out to Sebring. No, I'm done driving other people's cars for a while. Do you think the streetcar debate, the way to handle it is to have multiple streetcar classes, as in all different, and as in all the different heads-up classes? Yeah, absolutely. So I will use their current format: streetcar elite, streetcar pro, streetcar sport, and then champ. I think I'm actually right. I have a bad memory, but I think that's correct. I don't think those should change, but I think when you sign up for champ, or you sign up for sport or pro or elite, and each one of those classes have a specific rule set. Streetcar elite is the same rule set they're using right now, right? Pretty much almost anything goes. Not really. They have rules. So whatever the current rules are, that becomes the elite rules. Then The second class, Pro, has maximum turbo sizes. If you're running a single, maximum of an 88. If you're running twins, maximum of 62s or 64s or whatever. I'm just throwing numbers out there, but that's the general idea. If you're running a Pro Charger, no more than an F1A. If you're running a Whipple, no more than a 3.0 liter or 3.8 liter. And then the next class, you got a Whipple 3.0 and a P1X and no twins maybe once you get to the third class, all singles. I'm not really sure, and I'm not sure that it's doable. Anything's doable. The problem is you got to get enough people together and get to common ground, and that becomes very difficult. Very difficult. I did not see 2020 plus GT 500 7-second. There's never been one. Never. Victor is helping tighten in the streetcar class for 24. He took away methanol for V8s and no spindle mount wheels. Well, fudge. Then I can't race that shit. I got spindle mount wheels on my red car. I guess I'll be in the 28 class, which I don't have a problem with. Eric says, yeah, Haley went 6s at World Cup with a 76 millimeter turbo. Any idea what they weigh? Hey. Spindle mounts are definitely street. That way, when I get a flat tire, I only have to take one nut off instead of 5 lug nuts. It seems like it's more streetable to me. Craig Belt says, PBD track rental day. Yeah, the problem is when you do a track rental, typically you can't do side-by-side racing unless it gets way more expensive. If you do that, it has to do with insurance. I've done that, but it gets expensive. You have to take an insurance policy out. I'm not sure how Bradenton does it, but Cody says, NPC Real Street class here in Maryland. I race those cars in Wild Street at World Cup, but the Real Street season rules say no twin turbos. How do we pair grade at one event, but not year round? Well, the problem is in Maryland, I don't know the Wild Street rules. I was just paying attention to Street Fighter rules. But Street Fighter rules, I think it's the same in Wild Street. You'd have to let me know. But basically, it's using Mod Nats rules. So the reason you're paired with it is the 6R80 is supposed to be to level the playing ground, right? So, so you have to get somebody to, so Jason, when he does the World Cup rules, he listens. I had a long conversation with him a couple years ago about somehow we can work GT 500s into the mix. It just wasn't a good fit for that type of race. So it didn't go anywhere, but he's willing to listen. He's like, I want these cars there if they want to be there. And, he was willing to work with us. So it really comes down to, what happens is the rules get so complicated. And even when you look at the World Cup rules, if he had to write those rules from scratch and they were all his rules, I don't know how that could happen. He's using rules from other classes. So how are they going to handle Wild Street next year for you or this year? They can't use a Mod Nats crossover because they don't even have that class in Mod Nats. So, let's talk about limiting factors, ways to limit cars. If it's turbocharged, size of the turbo. If it's supercharged, the specific model of the supercharger. We have weights and transmissions. Now, there's definitely some, this is a controversial topic, and I'm not throwing any shade at Lund. I've mentioned them multiple times. I think their car is awesome. But at the end of the day, they're running very close to a Turbo 400 because they've re-geared their 6R80. So if there's a 6R80 rule, should they be allowed with that transmission in the class? That's hard to argue, Cody. I mean, you're tuned by them, so you're kind of on their team. But is it fair for you with a true 6-speed transmission, having to race a car that's set up that can go much quicker than you for more than just the transmission? That car, I assume, is a little bit more it's got bigger turbos. I'm not sure about the engine details or any of that. So they're probably making a lot more power than your car makes. But, that's why this is a difficult topic, because there's so many ways to limit cars, but then there's little like ways around that sometimes that can really screw you. I use a Hellion TT kit from a 17 Mustang on a 2020 Mustang GT? It should be pretty close. I love the Matt Davis says, love the Hellion twin turbo sleeper system on my 2018 GT. Turbos on that car are sick, lots of fun. Actually, you guys are retuning me in a couple weeks. Awesome. Thanks for being on Team PBD. Eric says Ultra is 3150. World Cup can be lighter. Not sure how much off the top of my head. So there goes another example. Cody was asking about having a run with 76 millimeter cars, yet I'm pretty certain Cody's car isn't anywhere near 3150. So, the weight becomes a factor. Chuck says London only uses 2 gears now, second gear leave. I knew they tried that. I wasn't sure if that's what they were doing on the 760 passes or not. Tire size is definitely a limiting factor, although to me, I don't love tire size as a limiting factor, because to a certain point, right? 275 is fine, but I mean, Victor Supra just set the record for the world's fastest import on a 275. I think it went 630s, and Brett's been 620s. You go any smaller than that, and man, people do it, but start getting pretty dangerous going 200 miles an hour on like a 235 or something like that. There's that class out there. I don't have any input in that class, but anyway. John says, in your opinion, which Ford engine is the best? If we're talking like a bone stock engine, not platform, it's got to be GT500 by far. I mean, there's no engine even in the ballpark that will handle 1,200 to 1,300 horsepower without any modifications whatsoever. And we do 1,200 a lot on GT500. So, I'm talking potential power. I'm a power guy, right? You can argue for, some of these that are bone stock ones that make 500 with that type of 500 NA with that type of displacement, but that's not an argument I like to really be involved in. To me, I don't care if it's NA, if it's nitrous, if it's blower, turbo, or has 3 power adders. What's the max power I can make? I want to go as fast as I can. Jamie McCormick, yeah, Brett's a badass, and he's been part of this conversation pretty much the whole time. How did the ported manifold do against the new carbon manifold? The car that we tested it on, we had some issues with, so we didn't get to complete that test. And then I had to send that manifold off to Ryan Hargett to mock up on his Pro Mod, which is a Camaro with a Coyote in it. And when he gets his actual real manifold that he ordered, then I'm gonna get that one back, and we're gonna do a test again. So right now the jury is out. Excuse me. 300-6. I must have missed what that was in reference to. So anyway, all right, guys. What else? Trying to think of what else we can talk about on the streetcar stuff, though. The point is none of us know the solution to this. None of us have an answer to this, but I wish we can come up with a way to all discuss it, and nothing against you guys, but it's not really up to just some random comments on YouTube. Really what it needs to be is anybody who's raced streetcar in the last 2 or 3 years all needs to get together. There needs to be some sort of like association you can join if you've raced it, and everybody gets a vote. Like, let's put it to the people. You got 80 plus people showing up for one class. And to me, that's great, but is that going to keep happening? Right? Is that going to keep happening? Or is it one of these deals? Oh my God, there's streetcar class. Oh shit, I'm gonna have to race Brett. I got a sandbag. See you later. You know, I don't want to see that. And you see that with most race classes. So what can we do to keep that from happening? I don't have the answer. I'm just asking the questions. What do you think? Why do you think we did not see GT500 7-second transmission? You know, even the guy HPJ built the car. They put a turbo 400 in it. They still didn't get a 7 out of it, but that was a stock engine, I believe, and they went like 8.0 with it. I think, really maybe 8.1, 8.0, 8.1, and you know, it was a fast car. But it still wasn't like super light. They had some weight out of it, but it was a GT500, which starts out at over 4,000 pounds. So even lightweight with a driver, if you have a cage in it, it's probably still going to be 35 to 3,600, and I doubt it was even that light. So you know that's why. So you know, and that everybody's gotten very I don't know, used to seeing 7-second cars, but you know, it's very difficult to go 7s. I went 7s in my twin turbo Coyote 760s, which, you know, is still one of the top 10 6 or 80 cars out there, I believe. But, you know, it's a lightweight car. I didn't need twin 72s on it to go that fast, but had twin 72s on it. The engine wasn't really in the best shape. You know, going 7s is not easy. I was probably making 14 to 1,500 horsepower. I made 1,600 horsepower on my blue GT500, but DCT just really erases any chance of going 7s, in my opinion. You can go that fast with a DCT, just not the Ford one, because they've tied our hands. They need to make an outlaw street, anything goes, then a more limited rule set for everyone else. No lockups unless stock stuff like that. Yeah, I agree. That's a great way to do it, which is kind of what I said. Keep the current rule set. Whatever the rule set is that Brett qualifies under, leave that rule set. And then, you know, and do we need 4 streetcar classes? Probably not. But, you know, we want a lot of people to show up, so I don't know the answer to that. But, you know, you can have the current rule set, and then I'd say 3 classes would probably be the easiest, best way to do it. And maybe switch them to be all run fields. I don't really love the whole, like, you got to qualify to be able to race on Sunday. I don't think that should really happen in this type of racing. I'm sorry. People are spending a shit ton of money, and if you just have like a bad qualifying time, but you have a fast car, you're going home before you get to eliminations. I don't like that. So I'd rather just see, you know, 2 to 3 32 car fields, which may not be filled with 32 cars, and you know, just come up with a rule set to have those people duke it out. You know, one other possible option is one of the offshoots from the streetcar class could be the overdrive class, right? How many cars in streetcar were running overdrive transmissions? Is there enough to fill out a class at these streetcar races? Probably. Streetcar Bragging Rights has their overdrive deal that I think's doing really well, and that would probably be a good spot for me and Cody and anybody else that has overdrive. And that seems to be a pretty popular deal. So that could definitely be one solution. So you have an outlaw class, you have a medium class that's like limited turbos and weights, and then you have a streetcar type overdrive class, right? So out of those 80 people that showed up, now, you know, you have 20 or so in the top class, 20 or so in the middle class, and 20 or so in the overdrive class. So that's not a bad idea. We do a town hall at the end of every GRM 2K challenge based on what shows up. That's not a bad route to go, but man, races are so hectic. And then you're saying you're doing it at the end. Most people leave at different spots once they get eliminated on these races because they're multi-day events. So I'm not sure that would work, but some sort of meeting of the minds. Being I've never been to a Mod Nats, and now there's no 6 or 80 class, I was told to come run 750 index. Do you think that sounds appealing? No. I think me and you think alike, Cody, and like I don't. If I had my car together, I would go run 750s because it's 3 hours from here, but I wouldn't travel multiple states to go run any index class. Doesn't matter what index it is. There's plenty of people still running the 850 class in drag and drive events. I agree. There's plenty of people that bracket race. There's plenty of people that, do all sorts of things. It's just that doesn't interest me. I ran 850, obviously. I ran 850 in the 2018 drag week, and my car was not competitive. It was a last-minute deal, and but I did run my first 8-second pass at a drag and drive event at Darlington, and that was awesome. I enjoyed it, but I wasn't there. Theoretically, I was there trying to win 850, but I was just there to compete. But I have no interest in picking an ET to run. The ET I want to run is as fast as fucking possible. That's what drag racing is to me. It's sad that they need to make rules to handicap the 302 cubic inch when it's competing with 400 cubic inch LSs. Not really, because you can do, once you get into power adders, it changes the game, especially turbos. The engine size is not super important. I mean, there's different things you have to address to get like a 2-liter motor to work like a 5-liter motor to work like a 9-liter motor. But at the end of the day, if you have a properly set up engine, the turbo that you're running or turbos that you're running is really going to determine the power you're making. You're just going to make more boost on the smaller displacement engine. Eric, does Lund qualify as an OD trans? Of course, you got to ask me that. I don't think so. In the whole topic of the 6 or 80, king shit, like I have no problem with them being at the top of that. And they tuned Cody's car, which is the fastest 6-speed currently. But, I've never been a huge fan of the 4R200. I didn't like that idea from the beginning. I also have heard lots of people like overdrive doesn't even really work well in those. I don't know, because we don't tune them. So I'm just hearing things through the grapevine. But I think that's pretty much a race transmission. Streetcar bragging rights does blind qualifying. There you go. That's one way to fix it. Although I assume that means no time. That solves the problem for sandbagging, but it screws the fan. If I'm watching that as a true drag racing fan, when I say screws the fan, I'm talking like, what the car's supposed to run to that level fan, not just, hey, I'm watching some fast cars. What's the fastest 10R car? I believe 760s. We talked about that last week or the week before. Not anywhere near a 6R. John says, thanks for answering all my questions. What do you think to compare new BMW M3 or M4 versus GT500? I don't know. The new BMW is cool, but I don't really like BMWs. I don't want to say anything stupid, so I'll leave it at that. David, that's only at Ducks event. Streetcar bragging rights in May has multiple classes with 2 days of qualifying for each. The issue with all of it is tech. Jason Miller has a massive staff to police the rules. Who's going to tech all these cars? Well, that's a very good. It's kind of like what I said went along the lines of the rule set, right? It takes a ton of manpower and super smart guys to make rule sets that include every brand of car out there with all these combos. You're going to wind up with issues with your rules and have to every year make adjustments. But that's just to get the rules done. Then you have to enforce the rules. And Jason is a hardcore motherfucker when it comes to rules, or at least that's what it seems like, where they're taking turbos off cars and measuring them and all that. But, it's the chicken or the egg thing. He's able to do that because I would assume they make a shit ton of money at that race. And why? Why do they make a shit ton of money at MIR World Cup? Because of the fans, because the stands are full. That's where the money comes from. The money doesn't come from entries. The money doesn't come from sponsors. That's helpful, but they make the big money from the fans, and you got to make it interesting for the fans. Any PBD open house, cars and coffee shop tours this year? I just need a reason to come to Florida. You don't have to. You don't need a special reason. Obviously, since Florida is such a big destination for vacation, we get people stop by here all the time to say hi. We don't have a ton of time to stop and talk, but we'd be happy to walk you through the shop. I like our shop. It's awesome. But it's not that big, so it doesn't take that long to tour it. Carolina Dragway running overdrive races. Grooves organize it and race it. Looks pretty cool event, just more like a no time race though. Yeah, and those are the types of events that seem to go pretty well. No time, no prep. There's lots of people competing for that. What's Ford's biggest mistake about a Mustang? I don't know. I think they've done pretty damn good with the Mustang. I mean, back when I was starting, I dreamt of something like the GT 500, and there you go. We've got it. Can you ask Kelly when his long travel struts will be available for S197? He has them listed for sale, but can give an estimate when they ship. Those long travel struts are, I believe they're the same struts as what he's selling to everybody else. They require an adapter from Mike Thomas Fab. So it's probably really more related to when that part's going to come out from Mike Thomas Fab. If they actually tech cars accordingly, those events would be pretty empty. I'm not sure which one you're talking about. World Cup, they do. I know they tech a lot of stuff pretty hardcore. Maybe not everything. Cody says he wants to come down and enjoy Florida with you guys for a week or two of racing, but it's come down to race what? No Mod Nats and FL2K is just a small version of Texas 2K, right? Yeah, that's kind of fair. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's similar. I mean, I like FL2K more. It is smaller, so it's a little less hectic. The roll race is not as big, so it's not as taken up on. It's not a week-long race, that's for sure. But yeah, that's the question you're gonna be asking yourself a lot with the combo that you've built, Cody. And I'm in the same position. But I fully intend. I'll say it here. I've said it before. I used to say 680 for life, but that is no longer the case. I am going to put a 680 in my car. I'm going to have some fun with it, not because of the internet or because of some ET list or any of that, but I want to try to set a bar with the 680 as low as I can, but with the full intention of eventually just putting a turbo 400 in it and just racing to have fun, because that's the easiest way to do it. You'll find the most classes, the most competition, and unless somehow the overdrive stuff really takes off. But the problem is I'm building my car kind of maybe overly extreme, even for, like, I plan on drag and driving it, but like I believe somebody said they outlawed spindle mount wheels in some classes. Well, I have spindle mount wheels. There's probably going to be a lot of things about my car that makes it illegal for a lot of classes. But I'm building my car for me, and I'll find a place to race it. At the very least, I'll always do drag and drive events. I really, really enjoyed. I've only done one. I did Drag Week 2018. I really, really enjoyed it. And if all I ever do is drag and drive my car, I would be happy with that. Although that's not true. I'd be content with that. The problem with drag and drives is it's more like pro test and tune, right? You're just trying to run a new best, or, well, not an 850 street race. We're back to index racing. But, if I went to drag and drive, it would be like I was able to average a 6 second for the whole week or something like that. But other than that, you're not racing another car, right? And when you're racing another car and it's a tight race, that's the most exciting thing to me. And when you're racing based on a common rule set where that guy has the same rules as you have, then game on. That's exactly what I want, right? And then that's not what these street car races are. They're more just like, run what you think you should run, and then we'll just filter you in and pair you up with guys that are kind of close to you. That's fun. It's better than what we had before the streetcar classes. Thinking back before that was really a thing, you know, cars like you're seeing show up in masses, 60, 80 cars. That didn't happen. All right, guys, I lost track of time. I was just blabbing on forever. It's already past 8:30. If you guys have any questions for me, please let me know. I'll take this time to push PBD. We have a great team here. We sell all kinds of parts, every part you can think of. Not everything's on our website, so call. You know, a lot of people nowadays just want to go browse a website and pick shit out. I get questions all the time. Somebody will send me a picture of a part and go, hey, man, should I buy this? I'd be like, why do you want that? They're like, well, I'm just looking for something for my car, and it's in my price range. It's like, well, maybe you should just call us. Give us a call. We'll help you out. We'll tell you what, you know, you give us your goals, your budget, all those sorts of things. We like to build relationships with our customers. You're not just some order number on a website. We want to keep selling you parts, keep tuning your car, keep helping you progress. You know, that's one of the most fun things I get to do when I'm not racing myself is and that's why we do things like trackside support, remote trackside support, because like, I love it. Like, I love sitting there waiting for that message. Like, what did he run? What did he run? Oh shit. Let me look at the log. Yeah. Oh, cool. I think we could pick up a couple hundreds here, a couple hundreds there. It's a similar type of feeling that I get when I go to a drag race and help somebody, except I get to do it, you know, from home more often, and I can do 2 or 3 cars on a Friday night or more. You know, this Friday night, I'm going to have quite a few cars down in South Texas there, right on the border. Edinburgh, you know, I got a lot of customers down there. We're going to have I'm going to be tuning like 4 or 5 cars at that race. I think they have a race Friday. And I'm looking, it's only Wednesday, and I'm looking forward to that already. So, you know, I guess the point is this isn't just money to me. I love doing this. I love making cars fast. And, you know, if you guys want to be part of Team PBD, we would love to have you. Carl says, I just want my S650 to get the PBD touch. Yeah, unfortunately, you know, I'm not really hopeful there. What are some parts to remove or replace to get the weight off the front end of an S197? Everything. I mean, you got your K member, you can take the bumper out. You know, when you say off the front end, you got to remember, you know, depending on how your suspension's set up, you know, it's old school days was to get weight off the front, put all the weight in the back, and, you know, make it hook. And it's like, it doesn't really work like that as much anymore, especially newer ways of thinking and drag radials and stuff like that. It changes things quite a bit. So you may not want as much off the front as you think. TJ says, Ken saved my butt at BMP. Yep, that was I was actually there in person, which, you know, I'd love to get back there more. It's so hard. I wish I had another location over there and I can go work from over there sometimes and go to the track, but that's just not happening. What about if Brett goes roll racing, or is impossible? Not impossible. I don't think he cares too much about it. But the big issue that you run into when you get into that level of power, he probably has enough power to compete with the top roll racers, but the car's not going to leave like it needs to. So appreciate the chat. Great topic, Ken. You didn't say Ken. I said that. Great topic, me. All right. Anyway, really appreciate you guys showing up. We'll, if you guys have any suggestions on topics, I would love to hear them. I struggle a little bit every week to come up with something, but I usually try to use something that's people are talking about, or, you know, a common topic on Facebook, but definitely is not easy to come up with. So if you guys would like to see something in particular, I would love to make everybody happy and come up with a topic that everybody loves. So be sure you can always comment on this video. You can comment on the video even after the live feed on what you want to see next time. Send us an email to support@pbdyno. And if you need those parts, call 561-571-1173. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next one.